Hey everyone, welcome to the garage. And today in Archer's Garage we're going to be working on the Simplicity. The Simplicity Sunstar 20 horsepower with the Magnum engine. And so if some of you guys have been following the project, great. You may have seen the very first one, and you'll see and you know that I have a plow and I have a snow thrower for it. And one of the things I'm missing is the lift rod, okay? But we've got 3/4 steel here. I got another piece of steel for something else, maybe a bushing. I've got a 1/4 inch thick by 1.5 inches, right? Standard, plate or stock. It's square stock, right? Flat square stock. It's supposed to be the connecting piece that goes from the lifting mechanism, right? That lifts the deck and grabs the rod, right? And shoves it forward as you pull back on the lever, on the hydraulic actuator lever, shoves it forward and pulls it back. And then there's a pivot in the front of the tractor. We'll get a closer look at that in a bit. And then that's what essentially lifts up and pulls down our plow and whatever attachment we have, snow thrower, whatever you got. So that's for the front. And I'm just going to clean this off with the grinder. Start off with some nice clean stuff. Then we got to cut it. And I'll give you the dimensions of that in a bit. This is a little bit bent, right? We're going to have to work with what we have. This is expensive now, by the way. Steel is expensive, right? Here we are in the end of June of 2021, and everything has gone up. So I didn't buy this. I could have bought it, but that would have raised the price up a lot. It would have been flat. We'll work with this. Let's clean it up. Let's get started, guys. Okay, I'm going to start off with a fresh 40 grit flapper disc. As you can see, it's making a lot of dust, so I'm going to move the camera. And we'll be back in a bit for the layout. Okay guys, so I've measured the first piece. We're going to need 4 of these. It's 2 per side. That's 3.5 inches, all right, from the end. And then I just put my square on top. So we're going to cut them one at a time because you have the kerf. So you don't want to mark them all out because then you'd have to account for the kerf and then there's error. So we're just going to do it one at a time, and I think I'm going to bring these outside as well, and we're going to use the cutoff saw for it because it is 1/4 inch steel. Now you could cut this with a hacksaw; it'd take you forever. If you have your Sawzall, a nice steel blade will do it too, but that's also going to take you a while. So I'm going to bring it outside, and we're going to do the cutoff saw. This is the worst part of the whole job. All right, sorry for the noise, guys. I got the fans and AC on. It's getting hot today. So we have our stock cut and clean, right, and deburred, and it's about as straight as I'm going to be able to get it using the tools that I have. 3.5 inches, right? That's a little bit longer, but that's okay. A little bit longer is okay. A little shorter is a problem. Now, what we need to do is we need to pick the square sides. All right, so these seem to be square, square. I'm going to try to keep them square, so we'll grab one, and we have to cut a slot and drill 2 holes. So we need to make a 1/2 inch wide slot, and that slot needs to come about 1.25 inches in, right? So I've got the first step is we're just going to do a rough line here. So that's 1.25 inches, okay? So that's as far as we can afford to go, all right? And now we need a slot right in the middle. And that's going to be about 1/2 inch, all right? So I have my 1/2 inch drill here. Okay, so I'm making my centers. So that's 1.5 inches in from the squarest end I have. And I just take the square and I get it as close as I can. And then I flip it the other way. And you can see right in the middle, right, is going to be our mark. So what we need to do is draw a line straight down. Now, because none of these are absolutely square, what is square is the factory edge. Okay, so we're going to put another mark here. And that's our center line, okay? So I'm going to do all the others, all right? And then we're going to take, it's 15-30 seconds. So it's a little smaller, it's 2 sizes down. Just gonna eyeball it. Okay, so we'll make our marks here. We have to have a hole, and we don't want, the first hole cannot extend past this line. So we're gonna put a hole here, and we're gonna come down, we'll put a hole there, and we might get one more here, right, towards the end. And once we get that, the 3 holes on each one drilled, right, the top hole is gonna be our stop, and you'll see what I mean. And we'll hog out the rest, okay, with our grinder. So let me mark up all of these, and we'll be back in a bit, and I'll show you what's going on. All right, so now to help me out, I'm gonna use this 1/2-inch hole here. So I have some of these drill gauges or drill guides. Looks like we'll get another 1/2-inch hole towards the end. So we have this slot to make, and then we have a 5/8 hole off to the side to do as well. So we have a lot, and then they got to be ground. Do the rest of them, we'll bring them over to the drill press. All right, so I'm going to put a mark on my vise here. That's our lineup mark, and that'll help get me close enough with lining the drill. Gone over them. Then we're going to hog them out. Now this is a brand new one, and I could use a thicker one, and then we could do it that way and get rid of a lot of it. Or I have a bunch of these which are left over, and we could try burning those up. Like I said, we'll get the stone in there, and then I guess we'll finish up with a file or a sander or something. Okay, I'm going to continue to work on these, and I'll catch you guys in a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to change to the actual grinding stone, and we're just going to clean up in that slot. All right, I'm going to do all of them, and then I'll bring them over to the sander and I'll dress them a little bit more, and that should be good for now. Okay, so now we're going to need to put a hole in it, a 5/8 hole for our clevis pin. Okay, and the hole's got to be somewhere here. All right, and I think it's offset. They're all going to be offset, but it matters which way we weld them on. So first we're going to start off with the measurements that I see, right? And I think the reason for the offset is to give that little bit more angularity. Remember, we're playing with fulcrums here and lifting rods, so every little bit adds to mechanical advantage. But it's 2 13/16 from one end, right? So this is, I'm set right now to 2 13/16. That seems like it's a better measurement. Okay. Could be, I think it's 1 inch down to the center of the hole. And let's see if that does anything. Well, here's a 1 inch mark. I know it's real close. And if you were to put it there, what would you get? So let's take our, yeah, that's about right. Yeah, let's take this. This only goes to 1/2 inch, but it should give us a something to work with. This is just for reference. We have our mark. Yeah, it sounds about right. I can tell by the looks of it. Just make sure that when I go to drill, now I don't have a 5/8 drill. I have a 1/2 inch drill. And then I have this, which takes me to 5/8. Now we don't know if this will cut. It may not even be sharp enough. Or I've got a step bit to get us up the rest of the way. So I'm going to do the rest, and let me get through all of these functions. So I got to set up for the next operation, and we'll come back in a bit and we'll take a look. Right, we got to make sure the pin fits. Here we go. All right, let's check it out. All right, so we got a precision hole. I have to deburr it and radius it. But we'll do that tomorrow. I'm exhausted. It's after 7. It's a hot day, and I've been at it with customers and everything else. I've been doing this in between. All right, so it'll kind of fit in there. You'll see what I mean. All right, we'll be back. All right, let's do an update. Okay, so I did a few things to these. The first thing is I would recommend that you use a 1/2-inch bit here. And the reason for that is we have to reduce the size of this 3/4 rod down to 5/8. So that, and you'll see in the pictures, right, that this has to come, we have to put a mark about 1 inch in here. There's also a dimension of how much gap you want in there, about the center of what was the hole. And that these two pieces, right, they have to lay in such a way, okay, that we can weld it and that it forms a 1/4 inch gap in here, because this is gonna connect to as we pin everything down. See, now you're really starting to see where we're going again, right? When you look at the pictures. So we need a gap in here, right? So we got to squeeze these together. We got to get these closer together. So that's why I recommend a 1/2 inch, or maybe even more. We're going to weld it all up back to the rod, but it's probably easier for us using hand tools to cut this slot a little bit wider, and it'll drop down that much further on the 3/4 rod, and we won't have to remove so much of the 3/4 rod, okay? And that's what I'm thinking. So that was the first thing that I did this morning is I opened these up just a little bit more, right? Went in there with the grinder like I was doing, except I mounted it this way in the vise and I leaned into it. I put another chamfer on, a little thicker chamfer. I cleaned everything up on the belt sander. I chamfered, or relieved the hole. And I just got these a little bit more cleaned up, a little bit wider opening. And I figured we would do one end of it later, right? We'll finish up the other end later. We'll cut it to length because I have the dimensions of the length of the rod with the angle in it. We're not going to be super accurate with any of this. We don't have a fixture to lay everything on, and we don't have machine tools to cut slots and hole spacing and everything right where we want it. So we're going to need to work the one end, the last end later. So let me put a notch on this. I just want to kind of, we'll go around and we'll put our mark. It doesn't have to be super accurate, but that'll give me a line to work with. Yeah, that's going to be a long while. Another thing we can try doing is cutting some flats in it with the grinder, right? And then turning the flats, and that'll remove material a lot faster. Let's try that. We get a bucket, I'll quench that and we'll rotate it. It's going to be a while either way. All right, so I made a piece to go in the middle. Same basic dimensions and everything, and I put it in the middle. We're going to tighten this. I squared it up in the vise by tightening it. So it's square. Now we're going to tighten this 1/2 inch bolt. I drilled a 1/2 inch hole in the same location as the other holes in this middle piece, and you'll see what's going on. Let's tighten that up. Okay, so by creating a pack like this, right, what we have now is something that is stable when we go to weld it, and it's square. It's as square as we need it to be, right? I made this to about 5/8, and it goes right in, and it stops about where we need it, which is, right in line. It's about where we want it. It could probably come in a little further. I don't know why they don't go all the way to the end. They're trying for an overall length, and it's too sloppy. Okay, it should be tight. Okay, so 5/8 is, you don't got to go that much. So we're gonna do this again. Since it's long enough all right, it shouldn't be a problem. It's more like this is, I guess, 3/8, right? So this is more like 3/8 this steel. And the other stuff is, I want to say, because this would be quarter right here. So the other stuff that's on there is about 5/16. So it will slip in here no problem with a little bit of movement, which is what you want, because remember, dirt and rust is going to get on that, and you don't want this so close that it's going to pinch. So that's how I'm going to do it, guys. I'm going to go back outside, I'm going to remeasure this, and go back outside, and I'm going to fit this until it's tight, and this will be our new end here. So, hi guys.
Hola, mis amigos.
Okay. There it is, cleaned up. So I just did the one pass, which it seemed like I got a lot of material on there. And then I snuck in a little bit on the inside. So that's some good penetration. Let's go take a walk. And here we have it. Okay, I just had to pass the drill through one more time, the bigger one, because the mistake I made was I should have put the pin through, clamped those 3 pieces together, and then once I got it where I wanted it, then I could have passed the bolt through and tightened it, because the pin was just a little bit out of alignment. So otherwise it's good. The only thing I noticed is that these are not drilled down deep enough. So we're going to have to cut it, and we're going to want to put maybe another hole in, but that's not super important. But, you know, I'd like to keep it as tight as possible. Okay, but it's 7 inches in from the end is where your bend line should be. So I have the pole just on the outside of that, and we may want to move it back. Now, there's a lot of friction here. It's already starting to bend it. I just put a couple of pumps on. It might pop off, right? So we have to be careful. Okay. All right, let's take it out. What I did is I drew a baseline, and then you want to go up 3 5/8. Draw another line, and if you make it the base parallel, the rod parallel, this should come up. The top of this should hit that line. So we got to go more, and it looks like it's going nice and straight and parallel. All right, so let's just keep going. Okay, so it's 31.5 essentially end to end, right? So if you have this dimension okay, you should be all right. So 31.5. So 31.5 is about where my finger is. So we just have to kind of guesstimate. I'm going to put a cut. So it's about 31.5 right now, a little bit more. So I'm going to put a mark here, and I'm going to put a mark about 1 inch up in C, judging by the slot. And then we have to address the slot, okay? And if we have to trim it or adjust it, but I think if it's a little bit longer than 31.5, I think what would happen is it'll go up a little higher, but it may not line up as well, and it may come down a little lower. So we don't know. The only way that we're going to know is if we build the first one, and hopefully it works out. And then if I feel like I need to make changes, we'll have to make another one, right? But this is one way we're going to know. Let's find out. Anyway, I just lubed up the plow a little bit, dragged it in, blew it off. And you see the marks here, okay? So if you were to lay on our piece, I'm gonna lay that on there. I just want to determine if that seems like where I want it. It should be long enough to where it should drive the plow into the ground, okay? So we might actually want to even jack the tractor up a little bit just to get that bit of extra, right? And see where it is, all right, before I make my final cut. So I'm going to go play around with that, and I'll let you guys know in a bit. Okay, it should be total length of 31.5. And the pin offset should be opposite. So on here it's down. And on here the pin is up. So this is the part that connects to the servo, middle of the machine. And this is the part that connects to the implement. All right, so this is down, the other one is up. Total length is 31.5. I drew a baseline on here. Okay, so this is the 31.5 mark. You just line up the end with this. And to make sure it's straight and parallel, this is a flat surface. Put your square. These are laying flat. I don't know, it's about as good as you can get. I have the 5/8 pin in. I have clamps to hold it. It's about as close as I can get it. Okay, you might be able to drive it in a little bit more. Maybe you'll tap it in a little bit more. That's it. All right, I'm gonna get ready to weld. Okay, that's it. All right, we got one more thing to do, guys. We have to weld on, and I'll show you the picture. We have to weld on a piece, a little block, and it's to help, I guess, align the pin, the clip, the clevis pin. I don't know, but we're going to put it on. I got to go find material for it, though. So this is the section we just welded. It's in between on the face. Now, you could run more weld over it, but I don't see the point. All right, with all that weld on there. Listen, if it breaks, well, then we'll weld it again, but I think that's fine. All right, so we got one more thing to do, and they're calling out 1 inch by 5/8 by 1/2 inch thick. So the height needs to be 1/2 inch. So this is like 3/8. I put a little thick washer underneath that. And they're showing it, and you'll see the picture, they're showing it awfully close to the hole. But I'm thinking I'm going to leave enough room, depending upon which way I want to put this. What I think it's for is that when you put the pin through, that you need a spot for it helps hold the key that goes in there, the pin, or the clevis pin, or whatever you want to call it. I think that's what it's for. All right, so this is where it goes. I'm going to burn that on, just a couple of spots. Now, I could have made it closer, but when you put the hinge pin on, right, you need some room. So I think that's about right. This is really the correct hinge pin. All right, so I think that's kind of the idea. I got to drill and cut these pins now. I drilled, chamfered, and cut. So these are my holes. It's the correct length. Here are new pins. All right, and I chamfered everything. All right, let's go stick it in, and then I'm done for tonight. Well, maybe we can do a test. Now let's try the other way. There we go. That's nice and high. Okay. These springs compressed. Movement on the down. I can see that there was another bracket that went on here, just a piece of the 1.5 by or whatever. Might even be something, not even 1/4 of an inch. Just that it pinned on and it helped hold this in the bayonet mount back to here. So it's not the, this is the only, that would be the only locating part, but it will also take some of the load off of here. You know, I would say actually what it would do is it would put some load from here to here as well, or vice versa. It's all sprung loaded, and you can actually adjust the overall height. So far so good. We'll have to make the attachment that goes from here all the way up to here and then over to the cab area. That's going to be part of this mechanism. So what you see, what it does is when you twist the handle, it does this. I've been freeing these up. Everything's working good. So when you twist the handle, it does that. When you disengage, okay, you'll be able to turn this in any direction you want by pushing the rod. You have to lift it up first. And now if you don't want to lift it up, you want to do it on the fly, you're going to need to get a ram, right? So we could work on that another time, you know, maybe next year or something. We'll see. We're getting there. All right, I'll be back. I'm done for today. I'm exhausted. It's hot. And we'll take it to the next step tomorrow or another day. I'll see you guys in a bit. Archer's Garage. We're out. Okay, this is all set up. I had to take the plow off anyway, so... And this can actually be installed and left there. It's not in the way or anything. It might bang a little bit, but, you know, who cares? All right, but you won't lose it. Anyway, that's done.